Donald Trump, in the last 24 hours, was hit with a legal 1-2 punch. And finally, it's coming from problems that he created for himself on multiple fronts, and it may really cause a problem for him. So if you're looking for a single bad headline or a speculative legal theory, that's not what we have here. What we're talking about here is a slow erosion of the guardrails that Trump could count on to protect him. They're slowly being taken apart brick by brick, exposing Trump as we approach the midterm election. Start with Congress. Republicans just did something they think is really cool. They've gotten Bill and Hillary Clinton to agree to testify before the House Oversight Committee about Jeffrey Epstein. They threatened contempt of Congress and criminal penalties, the whole thing. And the Clintons said, "All right, well, we're going to do it." Democrats immediately saw what Republicans had done, and now they're warning. Republicans have set a precedent. Former presidents and first ladies and family members, they're fair game to be brought in when Democrats regain subpoena power, which I believe will happen in November. God willing, if we all go out there and vote and make it happen, Trump and his family members are going to get hauled in under oath, his businesses, his finances. One lawmaker put it very plainly. Trump, all of his kids, everybody. And the part that Republicans seem desperate to ignore is that if Bill Clinton barely being mentioned in the Epstein files justifies bringing him in to testify under oath, Trump being mentioned tens of thousands of times, along with his properties, associates, his wife, it would logically mean you've got to bring them in too. You don't get to invent a standard. If you're mentioned, you should testify under oath. And then pretend that it doesn't apply to you. Republicans wanted this to be a one-way street, and it isn't. Now, at the exact same time that's going on, there's legal trouble for Trump in Georgia because he still refuses to accept that he just lost the 2020 election. That's it. The FBI raided a Fulton County election hub recently. They seized ballots and voting records, and county officials are now preparing to sue in federal court to force the government to return them. Why did it happen? Because Trump is once again pushing election conspiracy theories, hinting that interesting things are going to come out of Georgia, and suggesting that Republicans should take over elections, nationalize and militarize voting. As I said earlier, this is a world not only of authoritarianism, but relevant for our discussion today. This is a world of narcissism. In Trump's reality, you don't lose. And if you lost, it was because someone cheated. And if there's no evidence, it proves that the conspiracy was so widespread that they hid the evidence. It's classic conspiracy thinking. Trump will never accept that he lost. He would rather burn the country down than admit defeat, because losing for Trump wouldn't just be a political failure. It would be a psychological annihilation to the core of his ego. And Georgia is where this keeps coming back to haunt Donald Trump. Remember that after 2020, Trump pressured officials. "I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break." His allies were pushing fake slates of electors, or slates of fake electors. Are the electors fake, or are the slates fake? It's all kind of fake. Local election workers were harassed and targeted, and there were racketeering charges. Trump avoided all of it only because the Supreme Court handed him sweeping presidential immunity for things he did while he was in office. It was complete nonsense, but that's what they did. Now he's back at it. Same state. He just can't quit Georgia. So if we zoom out, you've got on one side Republicans cracking open the door to congressional subpoenas of former presidents and their families, and Democrats are lining up to walk Trump right through it. On the other side, Trump is tangled up again in Georgia. Conspiracy theories that are leading to lawsuits, court fights, and scrutiny. And this is building legal pressure from multiple directions at once. It's like the pressure building in Trump's ankles as they swell and swell and swell. They can only take so much. And I think it's important to go back to what my friend Lev Pernas told us during a recent Substack Live, which is that for all of the headlines about Trump ignoring this court order, and that court order, to a great degree, 70%, 80%, 85%, justice sometimes moves slowly. Eventually, the courts are actually getting what they demand from Trump in more than 3/4 of the circumstances. So he should be careful. Make sure you're subscribed to Newsix Brief. Now, let me expand on what this really means for the broader political and legal landscape, because what we're witnessing isn't just another Trump controversy or legal skirmish. It's a fundamental test of whether accountability still exists in American democracy, and whether the precedents being set today will protect or undermine democratic institutions for decades to come. The congressional subpoena precedent that Republicans just established is far more significant than they seem to realize. For years, There's been an informal understanding that former presidents and their families maintain a degree of distance from the rough and tumble of congressional investigations. This wasn't a law or a constitutional requirement. It was a norm, one of those unwritten rules that helps maintain stability and continuity in our political system. Republicans just shattered that norm, and they did it for what appears to be purely partisan purposes. They want to embarrass the Clintons, to keep Hillary Clinton in the news, to tie Democrats to Jeffrey Epstein, even though the connections are tenuous at best. But what they've failed to anticipate, or perhaps they simply don't care, is that Democrats will use this exact same precedent against Trump and his family the moment they regain power. And here's the thing. If the standard is that anyone mentioned in problematic documents should be hauled before Congress to testify under oath, Trump is exponentially more vulnerable than Clinton. The Epstein files mention Trump repeatedly, extensively, in contexts that are far more concerning than Clinton's appearances. Trump's properties hosted Epstein events. Trump socialized with Epstein for years. Trump's own statements about Epstein are on the record and deeply problematic. So Republicans have created a weapon that will be turned against them with far greater effect than they ever used it. This is the short-sightedness of partisan warfare. You're so focused on scoring points today that you don't think about the long-term consequences of the precedents you're establishing. When Democrats retake the House, and I do believe they will in the midterms if voters turn out, they will have every justification to subpoena Trump, his children, his associates, his business partners. They can investigate his finances, his business dealings, his foreign entanglements, his potential violations of the Emoluments Clause, his role in January 6th beyond what the criminal justice system has already examined. The list is endless, and Republicans just gave them the green light to do all of it. But the Georgia situation is even more revealing because it shows that Trump fundamentally cannot help himself. He had an opportunity to move on from 2020, to focus on the future, to rebuild his political coalition around forward-looking policies. Instead, he's still fighting the last war, still insisting he won an election he clearly lost, still promoting conspiracy theories that have been debunked repeatedly. Why? Because as I mentioned, losing isn't just a political setback for Trump. It's a psychological impossibility. His entire self-concept is built around winning, around being the best, around never admitting weakness or failure. To acknowledge that he lost would require a level of self-reflection and humility that simply doesn't exist in his personality structure. This is textbook narcissistic pathology. When reality contradicts the narcissist's self-image, reality must be rejected. And so Trump constructs elaborate conspiracy theories to explain away his loss. The conspiracy grows to accommodate each new piece of contradictory evidence. No evidence of fraud? That proves the conspiracy was so sophisticated they covered their tracks. Courts reject the claims? The courts are in on it. Even Republican officials in Georgia certified the results? They were weak, they were compromised, they betrayed him. The FBI raid on the Fulton County election hub is a direct consequence of Trump's ongoing conspiracy theorizing. He's still pushing these narratives, still suggesting that interesting things will be revealed, still trying to undermine confidence in the electoral process. And federal law enforcement is taking him seriously enough to act on it, even though these investigations have repeatedly found nothing substantive. What's particularly dangerous is Trump's suggestion that Republicans should nationalize and militarize voting. This is authoritarian language. This is the language of someone who doesn't want free and fair elections. He wants controlled elections, elections where the outcome is predetermined, where the mechanisms of democracy become tools of partisan power rather than expressions of popular will. We've seen this playbook in other countries. You start by claiming the elections are rigged. Then you demand reforms to secure the electoral process. Those reforms inevitably involve giving partisan actors more control over election administration, more ability to challenge results, more mechanisms to overturn outcomes they don't like. Eventually, you end up with a system where elections are held, but the outcome is never really in doubt because the ruling party controls all the levers of power. That's where Trump wants to take us, and Georgia is his testing ground. He's already tried it once in 2020, pressuring the Secretary of State to find votes, organizing fake slates of electors, encouraging his supporters to disrupt the certification process. He failed, but only because there were still enough people in positions of authority willing to stand up to him. The Supreme Court's presidential immunity decision was a gift to Trump, one that he absolutely did not deserve. The idea that a president can commit crimes while in office and face no legal accountability is antithetical to everything America supposedly stands for. We don't have kings. We don't have rulers above the law. The president is a citizen who temporarily holds an office, and when that term ends, they're accountable like anyone else. But the Supreme Court's conservative majority decided otherwise, and Trump skated on conduct that would have landed anyone else in prison. Now he's emboldened, convinced he can do whatever he wants without consequences, and he's testing those boundaries again in Georgia. The question is whether the legal system will hold this time, whether federal courts will push back against overreach, whether state officials will stand firm, whether prosecutors will pursue cases even when it's politically difficult. Because if Trump gets away with it again, if he successfully intimidates officials, manipulates the system, and escapes accountability once more, he'll have learned that there truly are no consequences for his actions. And that's when things get really dangerous. Because an authoritarian who knows he's untouchable, who understands that the system won't stop him, who has already shown willingness to overturn democratic results, that's someone who will push boundaries even further next time. The legal pressure building on Trump from multiple directions isn't just about his personal legal jeopardy, though that's certainly part of it. It's about whether American democracy has enough structural integrity to hold an authoritarian accountable. It's about whether the precedents being set today will protect democratic institutions or hollow them out from within. Republicans may think they're being clever by weaponizing congressional subpoenas against their political enemies, but they're actually weakening the entire system. They're normalizing the harassment of former presidents and their families, which will make it harder for anyone to serve in office knowing their entire family could be dragged through partisan investigations afterward. Trump may think he's being smart by continuing to push election conspiracies, but he's actually setting himself up for legal exposure in multiple jurisdictions while simultaneously undermining public confidence in democracy itself. When half the country believes elections can't be trusted, governing becomes impossible, compromise becomes impossible, and political violence becomes more likely. These aren't abstract concerns. These are real, immediate threats to American democracy. And the choices being made right now, by Republicans in Congress, by Trump in Georgia, by courts at every level, will determine whether democratic institutions survive the Trump era or whether we're witnessing their slow-motion collapse. The pressure is building. The contradictions are mounting. The legal exposure is expanding. And eventually, something has to give. The question is whether it will be Trump who finally faces real accountability, or whether it will be the democratic system itself that breaks under the strain of his authoritarian assault. That's what's at stake here. That's why these seemingly small developments, a subpoena here, an FBI raid there, actually matter enormously for the future of American democracy. We're not just watching Trump's legal troubles unfold. We're watching a stress test of democratic institutions, and right now, I'm not entirely confident they'll pass. Thank you for watching Nuzik's Brief.